Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast, where we experience life being the real you. I'm your host, Randy Adkins Jr., author, teacher, speaker, preacher, and lifelong learner. I am excited about what we are going to dive in today. We're going to talk more about how we can produce on purpose, how we can navigate this life, and we're welcoming Arlene Miller to the Produce on Purpose podcast. And the first question I'm going to ask you, Arlene, is the barriers that you faced as a woman building two law practices. What were some of those areas, and how did you transition into coaching and overcome all of those barriers that you've had to start off with?
I don't know if I had any barriers to be a woman. It was interesting being in law school. When I went to law school, which was a long time ago, still a third of the class was women. So I wasn't the first generation. I think I was the third, maybe, of like really, gung ho, having women go to law school. And by the time I opened my own business, there were quite a few other women attorneys that had done the same thing. So I wasn't that unique. I guess the barriers that I faced as a woman was after I had been in practice for about 3.5 years, I opened my own solo practice in Lakewood, Ohio, which is a western suburb of Cleveland, and immediately found out I was pregnant. And
Oh,
all of our
wow.
family was in Louisville, Kentucky, and we were up, in in the Midwest. And all of my law school friends, all of my peers that I could maybe count on for stuff, they were in either Kentucky or the lower part of Ohio or Indiana. So I had to sort of build my own tribe because I was starting my own business and I was pregnant, and my then husband was in training and working like 70 to 80 hours a week. So I had a roof over my
Wow.
head, I had food on
Yeah.
the table, but I didn't really have him much. So that was the biggest barrier that I had when I went out on my own. And yeah, I guess it was a little bit of a barrier when I moved from Kentucky to Ohio because I didn't have, any connections to get my first job, and it took a while to do so. But I found some really nice attorneys to work for, so it was challenging, but not over the top challenging.
Well, that's awesome to know that, but you were able to make it through those challenging times, and you ended up with your own solo law practice. And so, as you have transitioned into the coaching realm, how have you been able to transition any potential beliefs that you may have started off with, and or habits, and now you have stepped into this particular role that you are as a coach and a healer?
Well, I really feel like everything that we do, if we go into it with an open heart, and I was really excited to become an attorney. I decided I was going to be an attorney when I was like 15. I surprised my whole family. And so I really feel that a lot of the left brain activities, the organizational skills, the ability to help people within the legal system and to have employees and all those skills and be, like active in organizations and be chairs of different committees and stuff like that, all that contributed to, doing what I am today, which is maybe a little bit more left brain, a little bit more heart, a little bit more flow. So I feel like they both came together, and I'm really grateful to have gone through law school, even though it wasn't the funnest experience of my life. But um, I'm really grateful for the skills. I'm really grateful for all the abilities of what I learned as an attorney. And I really feel like, I do feel like if we step into our journey and we really follow our heart step by step of the way, we're going to find that all the skills and abilities that we've accumulated are helping us to give our best right here, right now, today.
Yeah, so that accumulation of experiences, of skill sets, of all of the different things, and maybe you had obstacles, maybe you had barriers, but you were able to learn as you've gone through that journey and as you've kind of come to the place of where you are. And
Yeah.
as you talked about your heart, so I'm going to go where our heart is. How has kindness and patience and tolerance shape those relationships that you have and your career path of where you are and now?
Yeah, I think that I was. I don't know many attorneys that really apply kindness, patience, and tolerance, in the workforce. And I learned how to do that because the first part of my practice, I was a divorce attorney and I did child custody. I was appointed by the court as a guardian ad litem, and I was pretty young and naive. And I ended up switching to commercial law, and I sold my business in Cleveland, and I moved with my son to Colorado when he was 9 and became a partner in a commercial law firm helping businesses collect their debts. And I was pretty appalled by how collection agencies and a lot of law firms treated people that owed money. Lots of times things just happen in our lives and
Hmm.
a good business just went downhill. I mean, most people don't decide, oh, gee, I'm going to lose all my money in my business or I'm going to be half broke in my business. Something happens and then they have to
Hmm.
deal with it, with collection agencies and attorneys. And I just decided that in my practice of law, the gift that I could give back to other people was to treat the people that I was trying to settle cases with, because a lot of them couldn't afford attorneys, with kindness, patience, and tolerance. It didn't mean that I didn't have clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries if they were rude to me or they couldn't work with me because I had to represent my clients and maybe get a judgment and attach some assets. But my first choice, even after I did that, was always if they were willing to work with them and to treat them with dignity and respect because everyone deserves that. And I was disheartened how the whole industry was treating people. And so that's where I first started playing with kindness, patience, and tolerance a lot.
Because it's more than a transaction, right? And I think sometimes in business, we are just looking at the transaction and we forget that we are all human in whatever the transaction is. And I think that that's an important piece to be able to bring to any situation is that kindness, that patience, and the thought that we are all human. We all have human experiences, and all of them aren't great. And all of them aren't things that we said that we wanted to be in. But for you to start to provide that to those that you were serving is really admirable that you have been able to do that and bring that together. Now, have you seen that what you were able to bring to the workplace? Did it spill over to any other parts of your life, maybe in any of your family relationships or anything like that?
I hope so. I mean, it's not always easy raising a son, or any child, as a parent. I think I'm much wiser as a grandmother than I was as a parent. But I really do. I feel like it did spill over because I feel that like attracts like. And so
Hmm.
some of my best friends, when I was still in the practice of law in Cleveland and then in Colorado, were really kind, patient, giving people. They still gave to themselves. They still worked on themselves as well. And so I guess I really did attract those kind of people to me. Even when I used to be a runner when I was younger. And so one of the ways I took care of myself, there was a big athletic club and my son was maybe, I don't know, 4. And I had a couple of girlfriends and a couple of guy friends I'd go running with. They had a great daycare center. We put them in there and we'd have a run and we get everything out and we talk and we chat and the kids would play together. And, you know, so the kids got to experience kindness with playing with each other and making new friends, and I got to do it for myself by having that togetherness time just to let off steam from being a working mother and just needing some sort of a break somewhere to like let everything go. So I really do feel that like attracts like. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying that I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
We're always learning and growing, but I do feel that, yeah, I did attract people that were kind in my life. And I did attract some people that weren't. And then I had to really learn about having, clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries of what's okay and what's not.
Okay, that's the second time you brought up that word boundary. I want you to share what you did in your life to be able to set those boundaries right, because I've been one that has had some difficulties at particular times in my life setting the appropriate boundaries and relationships. And how were you able to do that? And how would you share for our audience to be able to put those boundaries in the right place?
Well, I think the what we're taught or we think the way we're supposed to do it is like the opposite of what we're supposed to do. Most people set their boundaries by how they are. We don't want to do that, and the reason is, maybe you're going out to breakfast with the woman you love or the man you love or whatever, and you're in a great mood, and you're going to go out to brunch or something like that, and you're wide open, and your waiter had a really bad fight with his girlfriend. He's all upset. He's projecting and because you're wide open, you're going to get whammied by his energy. And maybe it'll be like, feel like a
Mm,
punch in the gut. But the wise thing to do that I have found is to set my boundaries by how the other person is. Because we all know that in one moment we can be really clear and bright and loving, and maybe something happens or we get triggered with something. We're all human and we're not in the best place. So if it's like greeting each person that I know or that each person that I come into contact anew. Because just because the last time that I was with like another attorney or a friend and they were in a great mood and it was lovely, you don't know that when I see them again, they're going to be in that same place. So I always set my boundaries by how the other person is. And then, so it's like what I feel, my visual is I have this beautiful golden bubble of protection around me and only
mhm,
love can come in and anything else sort of bounces off the bubble back to its source. Because
mhm.
the only thing that I can clear, the only thing that I can change is my stuff. If other people dump their stuff in my field, I can't do anything with it. And that's their learning that they need to go through. So I have to sort of send it back to them. I love you, but this is your stuff. And so that's like a little short thing about maybe your audience can use about how to set those clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries.
Yeah, just let the love in. Don't allow, these other energies and thoughts and things that sometimes may show up from all kinds of sources. So you talk about an emergency toolkit for moments of stress and overwhelm. Can you share what is your emergency toolkit and how can we begin to get that to get some more peace in our lives?
So the reason I say that it's important to have an emergency toolkit, because if something happens, or maybe all of a sudden we get really stressed out because we have so many things to do and it's like over the top, or we get stressed out by the news or whatever happens, and we're just in that place where anxiety hits. If we have an emergency toolkit, we can immediately practice those things because we can practice them when we're calm and centered and in our hearts and things are feel well and they're flowing. And so my emergency toolkit, I think it's really important to be grounded and fully present because when we're in the present moment, we're not worrying about the future. We're not anxious about the future. We're not beating ourselves for anything we've done in the past. We're right here, right now. And one of the ways that I've learned to feel it in my body, and I know this is a little bit silly, but it works for me, is I like pretend I'm a tree because I love to be out in nature. It feels really, really healing to me. Get away from the computers, get out in the beauty of nature. And so I just visualize that there's this column of light going down my body. And when it comes out of my feet, it's roots of light. And I'm anchoring to the heart of the plant. And I feel really grounded, fully present here now. And that's the first thing I do. Another thing I'll do is I will breathe because when we get upset, when we get anxious, we breathe up here which sends
Hmm.
us into fight or flight response, or we even hold our breath. And so I'm like, okay, how am I breathing? Am I breathing at all? And a simple thing that we can do is just breathe in through our nose and breathe out through our nose and have the out breath longer than the in breath. And physiologically, that tells your body that we can go into rest and relax mode. And we can do it as we're doing other things, or we can do it if we're really stressed, just get quiet, listen to some nice music, go outside and just practice this breath work until we begin to calm down. And the other thing is that I really visualize my beautiful golden bubble of protection around me. I just
Hmm.
affirm I am only open to love. Anything else is bouncing back to its source with love. And I really just allow myself to flood my golden bubble with just the light and the love of source.
So you've given us three areas here. I can picture the tree. Then you go, and even if going out in nature for a moment, just to kind of center ourselves or ground ourselves into a space. Something happens, a stress happens. then you told us that we should focus on our breathing. And of course, I've heard of box breathing and some other techniques, but you shared how, just breathe in and let the breath out be a little longer. And then that third piece, that we should, really begin to focus on that bubble, just letting the right things in at the time. And you're sharing that will help us in those moments of stress and bring us back to a place of calm. And in that is probably something that everyone could take and use in their life so that they can get to a place to be at peace in what they're doing. So, as you're helping your clients, and what are some of the things that you would tell them to put in their toolkits, that is above and beyond for these life challenges?
Well, I think one of the things that we all need to focus on is, kind of the law of attraction is what we focus on is what we get more of in our lives. And so oftentimes what we're doing is we're focusing on the reverse of an idea. We're focusing on what's upsetting us, what we don't want to have in our life, what we're anxious, what we're worried about. Um, I believe that feeling is healing. It's important to allow our feelings to move through us, but I also feel like we really need to focus on and align to what we're moving towards, what we're choosing to create for ourselves in our lives. And so, one of the things I work with my clients, whether it's coaching or mentoring, is to really see what are they focusing on, because they say that they want X over here, but maybe they're focusing on Y, which is about all the things that are going wrong. And so that's where their focus is, and that's going to bring them down. That's going to make them more anxious and upset versus saying, okay, my feelings are valid. There's nothing wrong with my feelings, and I'm just going to allow myself to feel them and just sort of move through me and let them go. And then maybe I like to bring in light and love and to fill my cells where that fear was, so they're not vacant. But let's really focus on what I am moving towards and really acknowledge myself every time I take a small step of whatever that goal is, whatever that alignment is, whatever that vision or dream that I have for myself that I'm stepping towards. And I think when we simplify things down to those kind of simple steps, because lots of times I wasn't aware that I was doing this when I was younger. I was completely, I had no clue. No one ever taught me this stuff. So that's one of the things that I'd love to help people with.
And I think it's important to really think about that focus, because we've probably all had the car effect that happens in our lives, that you get a new car and it seems like every time you see it, that's that same new car everywhere, and you're like, where did all these cars come from? It has to do with, it's your focus. And when we learn to focus on the things that are really important to us and what we're doing and moving forward towards, and as you stated, if we have goals or dreams or aspirations, that we focus on those, it can help us in those situations and help us to continue to really overcome life's challenges, because life does happen to us. So as you're navigating, I know that it looks like you talk about people who sometimes get stuck, and sometimes it could be in your life, and you're trying to juggling a lot in your career and your self-care. How do you help someone who needs to get off that hamster wheel, feels like they're not getting anywhere? What are some things that they can do?
Well, I think the thing that really gets us stuck is that we judge ourselves or we judge something about ourselves or something in our lives. And then what keeps us on that hamster wheel going around and around is we judge ourselves for judging ourselves. And it's like it becomes this cyclical thing that you just can't seem to get out of. So the first thing that we really need to do is just become aware. Lots of times when we feel really stuck that we tell ourselves we can't do something or we can't get off of this hamster wheel or whatever that's going on. Of course, we're telling ourselves we won't, because kind of one of my yoga teachers shared with me, can't live on won't street, Arlene. And I never forgot that. But we really, once we become aware that we're judging ourselves and we're judging ourselves for judging ourselves, we can go, wow, well, that's not really helping. What could I do instead? Now that I'm aware of this and I feel where I'm stuck, what's one small step I could take in the direction of coming back to that centered space in my heart and stepping towards what I would love to create in my life. And sometimes we just have these patterns and programs in place as well, where we have these ceilings, that we tell ourselves, I can go this far, I can do this much, but I can't do any more. And so sometimes what I do is I help to work with people to shatter those ceilings. You know, we
Hmm.
it's what we learned from our parents or our friends or our family, or someone said it to us and it stuck and we believed it. And so when we recognize, when that's brought to our attention, when we really see what kind of patterns and programs we put in place that are not serving us, when we become aware of them, it helps to dissolve them because they have no place to hide. And we can begin to step forward one small step at a time to create a new reality for ourselves.
Yeah, we sometimes have limitations, or like you said, those programs that are running pretty much on default. But when we become aware of that program or that limitation that we have been playing over and over again, and it sounds like it's layered because you said judging yourself is like, wait a minute, how far do I go down and I'm judging, that would cause me to be in this space that just allows me to not get out. And I like it that we can start to focus on areas that just get, you said small steps. And the small steps can just be, I remember one time I just thought about it and said, if you wake up in the morning and you didn't want to get out of bed, well, now you're going to just say, I want to get out of the bed. That's your first step. Just want to get out of the bed. And then maybe the next day you want to get out of the bed and brush your teeth, whatever it is. But taking those small steps can
Yeah.
finally get you to move forward into the place where you can have what you need. How do you personally celebrate your milestones in your career, if both big and small?
Well, I think I can tell you how I do it, but it's important for everyone to. I was going to bring that in there because we need to acknowledge ourselves each small step of the way and find ways to celebrate it in a way that's meaningful. I love to watch episodes of like America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent. Some of the young kids that come on there that just their voices just blow us away, or they do some kids that come in with dance moves, or some of these great choirs that they've had. I really find that uplifting. Just do something to help lift myself up. I love to go out in nature. I mean, I'm so blessed to live in Colorado where we have these beautiful mountains that are everywhere. Or I'll just maybe do something with a friend, or I don't know, whatever feels right in the moment. Sometimes you just have to sort of like go, I'm just going to sit and have a cup of tea and a biscuit. I have a lot of friends that are Aussies, and that's how they would say it, Australians, and just give myself a little break just to appreciate. Wow, I got that letter written. I made that phone call. There was a little rift with this person in my family, and we had like a visual talk with each other. We, got on Zoom or something, and feels much more harmonized between the two of us. All those little things are important. They add up and they add just a beautiful depth and breadth to our lives.
The celebrations and making sure that you are showing yourself some progress throughout the process sounds like the way to go to be able to learn. How have you personally worked on silencing that inner critic, that one that was judging and judging and judging? What impact has that had on your life?
It's had a huge impact, and I'm really blessed because one of the things I get to do is I graduated from the Global Coaching Academy to get my diploma in coaching and mentoring, and I'm a professional certified coach, and so I get the joy of helping each intake that goes through the what I went through. And there's a time where they work in these triads. One's a coach, one mentors the coach, and one's a client. And I get to come in as a tutor and help them move forward. And part of that is helping to celebrate them, helping them to make sure that their inner coach is activated and
Hmm.
that they are not focusing on what they can't do, but what all the small steps they are to come forward. And of course, we always teach what we most need to learn. And so by gifting that to them, it feels like it helps to come back to me, and so that it's constantly in my awareness. I always say that I'm a work in progress, but I see that I'm very different from how I was in my 20s, and I celebrate that and I acknowledge that. And there's always more to learn, but The more we practice, practice makes permanent, the more we're going to energize that inner coach. And she's going to take charge and she's going to be in the driver's seat. And that inner critic's going to be in the back and get smaller and smaller. And that's sort of how I see it and work with it.
Is that how we can become more compassionate to ourselves? Because typically I feel that inner critic can sometimes be so loud to us and try to be in a place. Is there more to us to be more compassionate, or do we just have to make the choice?
Well, I think it really helps to be more compassionate. Of course, you're right. You have to bring in the heart or it's not going to work. If you're just a head case, if you try to figure all this stuff out in your head, you're not going to get it. If you feel what we're sharing from the heart and you allow, and eventually the penny drops and you actually get it, that's when we can really make progress. And sometimes it takes years for that penny to drop, but I agree with what you're saying 100%.
Oh, that is awesome. And I'm thinking of how can we apply some daily practices, because I want to stay positive and hopeful, and I want to make sure that the inner critic is always getting smaller and that I am moving in a positive direction. What are some of the daily practices I should incorporate?
I'm not going to shoot anybody, but you could. You could do some of these things. One thing that I like to do is before I go to bed, I like to really look at maybe something specifically, like how many times did I acknowledge myself today? Did my inner coach was that in the driver's seat, or were there times that it wasn't? And if there were times that I'd like to do something different or better, maybe my inner critic had a little bit of voice, or maybe I fell into some judgment for myself that I really had to take some time breathing and get off that hamster wheel. I like to take a moment and just sort of visualize like it's a TV commercial, how my life would be different in that moment if I had, if my inner coach had been in charge, if I'd really acknowledged myself, if I had not taken that little dip. And so what we're doing is we're creating a new foundation for the next time something like that comes up, where we have that
Hmm.
feeling experience of being that inner coach and championing ourselves and loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves and not beating ourselves up because we made a mistake, because we all make mistakes. Anyone that thinks they're perfect. Well, I don't think that's really the truth. So
Hmm.
that's one of the small things that we can do to help get ourselves out of the old way of doing things.
Acknowledge yourself. Gratitude is one of the areas you talk about, and practicing that. How has that shaped your journey, and how can we utilize that to continue to see more of the manifestation and a balanced life in our lives?
Well, the biggest mistake I think people make that I see from my clients or even from people that I know is they're waiting for something to be grateful for. And the truth is we have so much to be grateful for in our lives. From the roof over our heads to the running water, that's clean and we can drink it, to the bed that we sleep in, to the car that we drive, or any mode of transportation we have, to the people that we love. We have so many things to be grateful for. And it's really not about making lists. It's about feeling all those little moments of gratitude that we can have gratitude for during our day. It can be as simple as we're driving and there's just horrible traffic and some nice person just lets us in. Or it can be as simple as, you're at the grocery store and you just have a nice little chat with somebody, the checkout counter while you're waiting. And it's just a little heartfelt 30-second conversation. Or you're out for a walk or whatever, and you see someone and then they let you pet their dog and you have a conversation. There's all these little things that happen, or even the meals we eat, to really enjoy it. There's so many things to be grateful for if we just stop and feel it. And the more we do that, the more we build that foundation of gratitude, the better we're going to feel about our lives. It raises us up. It's a beautiful sacred quality. And, you know, all we have to do is just remember to practice it, just to play with it. What we focus on again is what we get more of. So if we start feeling ourselves beating ourselves or complaining about something or comparing ourselves to other people or judging ourselves, we can go, whoa, I'm doing that again, not bring in the judgment. What could I do now to bring in some gratitude? And sometimes we just have to choose it. I'm choosing to be grateful for this, even if we don't feel it. And that sometimes is the best first step that we can take.
I like how you said even if we don't feel it, because I was going to ask you that. I was going to like, sometimes you're in a position or you're in a place and you're like, I just don't feel like it. But you're saying, even in the midst of not feeling like it, you're saying we should still find a way to be grateful. What what can I be grateful for in that moment? That's
Well,
what I'm asking.
you can just, what we do if we really can't feel it is like
Hmm.
we're choosing it. It's like we're having this self-determination, this tenacity, this willingness to endure that we all have within us as human beings. Otherwise, we'd be extinct or something. And it's just like, I know I don't feel gratitude right now, but gosh darn it, I am choosing to be grateful. And I know sometime today or tomorrow this week, I am going to feel it. But right now, that is my choice. And,
I like it.
sometimes if that's the best we can do when we're upset and things are going like that. And it works because eventually we're going to get ourselves back on track again.
So we have a choice. It doesn't, and I know that sometimes our feelings, we feel like our feelings should drive us, but they're really just indicators that you might need to look at something. But in those cases, you're saying choose gratitude. Do you have any tips for daily routines to for manifestation and balance when we talk about gratitude?
Well, I can tell you what one of my clients did that just blew me away because she worked with me for a while and she was an attorney like me and had become a coach. And I just loved working with her. And we worked with gratitude off and on during the time that she was working with me. And then at the end of it, after she left, she said, Arlene, I am going to, on social media, every day for a year, post a picture or a photo of something I'm grateful for and write like one line. And she did it for a year. And her transformation was amazing. I followed her. It was such a gift for me too, because I could feel it. She was just really giving it a go. And so it's really what I've shared. We just have to practice makes permanent. We
Hmm.
can do something really concrete like that. Or maybe we just at the end of the day we write, I'm really grateful. Sometimes I just write the word acknowledge and I write three things I'm acknowledging for myself today. And for a while, gratitude was a key. I just wrote gratitude and I just wrote a couple of phrases of what I was really grateful for today. And then we're going with that into the sleep state and instead of some negative stuff. And that can help to begin to change how we feel when we wake up. And it's just a matter of finding some way that works for you to practice it so it becomes more a part of who you are.
I like it to integrate it into our daily lives, just making sure that we make it a part of our daily life, that we're going to be grateful and really just trying to be aware of all of the things we can be grateful for. Sometimes I just say, if I pinch myself and be like, I'm still here, that's something to be grateful for. Like, we could say that, but like, I can be grateful for that. That is awesome and very, very cool to be able to think about that. Now, you have talked a little bit about the breath work, but you also talk about healing ourselves from the inside out. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, everything I've been talking about is about healing ourselves from the inside out. But one way that really hits home with me is that feeling is healing. Because when I was younger in my life, my parents were wonderful people, but they raised me the way their parents raised them, and so certain feelings weren't okay. It was okay to be a little bit angry, but not really angry. It was okay to be a little bit sad, but not really in full grief. And so I ended up like pushing my feelings away and they sort of get stuck. And then eventually, like when I was in my early 20s and 30s, a bunch of times I would felt like I got hit by a 2x4 and I was flat on the floor because I hadn't been feeling my feelings. And so I guess what I've learned to do as one way to heal myself from the inside out is that if I'm really upset or frustrated or angry or a bunch of grief is coming up, I ask myself, how old is this part of Arlene? And oftentimes she's 8 or she's 5 or she's 20. And I just turn around and I hug her and I love her. And I say, I'm really sorry it wasn't fair for you. I'm the adult, and it's my job to love you. It's not your job to do all these things that are going on in my life. And so I turn around and hug and love an aspect of myself that has felt stuck. maybe I didn't like her behavior. Maybe just something happened and she got frozen in time where I couldn't handle something when I was a kid. I don't know, but that's one of the ways that I work with on a daily basis. It feels really, we all know how to love and do this for somebody else.
Yeah.
If we had a child that we loved or someone in our life that was going through something, we would hug them, we would love them, we would tell them that we are there for them. And so we just need to apply that and turn around and give it to ourselves when we're having those kind of moments. And that's going to begin to fill ourselves up with more love to heal ourselves from the inside out.
And there's a release that happens, especially if you acknowledge maybe something that has been there maybe for years. Like you said, I like that you say, how old is this issue, and that it's been brought up, and be like, specifically for myself, I want to know so that I can go back and hug that younger self of me and let it go. Then that way I can let it go and be released of it. We have talked about a lot. I want to ask you this question as one of our final questions. What are one or two things that someone that's listening in the audience today could take and begin to apply in their lives, that you feel will help them in their journey?
Well, one thing is one thing we already talked about. I view kindness, patience, and tolerance like a trinity, like a triangle that all goes together. And so it's, like just choose to be kind, patient, and tolerant with yourselves. I think we're way too hard on ourselves. We put all these expectations on ourselves with our judgments instead of like, sometimes what we tend to do that we're going to get done in a day could really take a week instead of being realistic with our goals and then so we're stopping setting ourselves up for failure. So it's just I'm choosing to work with kindness, patience, and tolerance as a trinity for myself, to bring that to myself as much as I can. And if I see myself, being hard on myself or critical or having unrealistic expectations, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to choose to be kind and patient and tolerant with myself. And it could be like, I'm going to go take a shower now, or I'm going to go out for a walk, whatever works for you.
Kind, patient, and tolerant. Thank you so much, Arlene, for sharing such great information. I believe that everyone in the audience should be able to take in something that would help change, transform them, allow them to live life in the real way that they can, and understand how they can really live a life of purpose and enjoy this life in a greater way. Arlene, how can my audience get in touch with you, be able to connect with you? What are some ways they can do that?
Well, you can come to my website, which is Jewel, like the diamond, Jewel consultancy.com. So I'm always there. Well, not always there, my website, but you can connect with me that way through my email or my phone, my cell phone number's there. And also, my full name is Arlene, and my middle name is Cohen, Cohen Miller. And if you Google that, you'll find all the websites and all the social media places I'm on because I haven't found anyone else with that name. So that's pretty cool. And I know people think I'm crazy, but if you really feel like there's something you want to say or you want to connect with me, the quickest way is just to text me at 720-936-2634. Mention the show so I'll know who to thank. And I'm happy to text or chat.
Well, thank you, Arlene. Thank you for sharing your phone number as well. And I have been blessed to have this conversation with you today of ways that we can really begin to heal ourselves from the inside out, have the gratitude that we need so that if we're stuck in different places, be more patient and compassionate with our own selves, and really walking in that kindness that same kindness that we give out is the same kindness that we'll begin to see, and that if we focus in the right areas, that we will be able to have those same things come back to us in our lives. And I think it's important for us to remember all of those key elements. And I encourage everyone to remember all that we said in this episode. And most of all, that if everyone will just take a moment to be the real you and produce on purpose.